Imagine a world where customer loyalty isn't a rarity but the norm. Unlock the keys to building lasting connections and turning first time buyers into lifelong advocates here with our experts today. So, joining us today to help us create new ways to get here, we have Blair Beckwith, Jamila Gann, Ruth Aim, Jacob George, Casey Luck, and Jay Carls throughout this whole experience at Email Edge. So, let's jump into our first session. And this first session is about boosting your Shopify store conversion metrics. So let's welcome our guests. Blair Beckwith, here with us. He's the CMO of TDO right now and has been working in and around e-commerce enablement for 12 years. He got his start leading the App Store team at Shopify and has been investing, advising, and working full-time with e-commerce ever since. With the little time he finds between work and his growing family, he's a long distance runner and avid reader. Welcome, Blair.
Thanks, Marianne. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
And we have Jamila Gunn. Jamila is passionate about helping e-commerce businesses convert visitors into customers. Currently, Jamila is marketing manager at Farah, where she helps e-commerce businesses leverage the power of reviews to build trust and boost conversions. Prior to her role at Farah, Jamila gained valuable insights into the world of e-commerce through running her own Shopify store, Alora Boutique. Welcome, Jamila.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the good intro too.
I just realized we're going from the bottom up. So last we have Ruth Evenheim. Ruth isn't your typical entrepreneur. She began her career working in the military's IT department before moving to a project lead role in high tech. During this time, she built a small e-commerce businesses as a side hustle. Through that experience, she then learned to think like a merchant and see where Shopify's app store was missing solutions. Together with her co-founder and brother, Eric, Ruth has built several amazing products, including Reconvert Upsell, the most popular upsell app on the Shopify platform today. She is a co-founder of Reconvert. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you for having me.
So let's jump right in. So in the first section, we're going to talk a little bit about e-commerce challenges and opportunities. And I was wondering, what are the major pain points for e-commerce growth teams when it comes to increasing conversions? Jamila, would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, for sure. So from my experience, one of the biggest things for businesses that are starting out and growth teams is truly understanding the customer behavior and the customer preferences and finding out exactly how these people are shopping, talking to their customers, making sure that they're understanding where the friction points are. And I think a lot of times people really get into the weeds of running their store day to day, and they don't take enough time to talk to their customers or solicit customer feedback. So that's like one thing that I find is hard for some people. And then the other thing for startup stores is trust and credibility. I've done a couple of conversion rate optimization audits for some of our customers, and you'd be surprised at like how little and how scanty the information is about who they are, where they're shipping from, all of these things that build trust and credibility, things like product reviews that, and even links to their social media. So for people starting out, it's really making sure that customers understand who they are and can trust them the first time, because if people can't trust them, they just leave their store. That's going to tank your conversion rate. So that's those are the big things that I see.
Awesome. So you're saying getting customer reviews and having the right information in the right place so people can actually feel they're legit.
Yeah, people don't want to think you're sketchy.
Right. It makes sense. Awesome. Larry, do you want to jump in and help with this one too?
Yeah, no, for sure. And Jamila, I appreciate everything you're saying. I think there's a lot that I want to touch on around kind of the human side of e-commerce. And I think that's that sort of trust is a big part of that, right? Like building that relationship with customers. I think more sort of, I think when we think about pains around conversion right now, I think important context is just sort of how rough things are right now. We went through some really great times with COVID. Now that's wrapped up. There's this question of looming recession, changing buying behaviors, compounded with some of the changes to the ad world over the last little bit. It used to be you could just buy traffic, and conversion was important, but you could always buy more traffic to offset a poor conversion rate. And I think like that has become increasingly hard. And so I think that's like super important context on why conversion is so important. I think for super small stores, an overlooked part is really like site speed. I think this is a problem for all stores, but I think it especially affects small stores. I think I worked on the Shopify App Store for a long time. I think it's an incredible resource for finding tools, but I think sometimes small stores get wrapped up in adding on a lot of tools. They have a lot of apps. This is like, if you apply those apps to an already unoptimized theme, site speed can drop very quickly, and that's just something that I think a lot of people don't really take into consideration. I think coming back to the sort of humanity side of things, I think really like proactive sales focused customer support. Obviously, like CX is what we do here, and so that's always top of mind. But I think it's just like, I think there's a limit to the comparisons you can drive between sort of e-commerce and like brick and mortar commerce. But I think one of the parallels that I always like to draw is like, when was the last time you walked into like a boutique store and bought something and the shopkeeper just like ignored you the whole time? That's the experience that most people go through when they shop online. And I think that's like something that should change. And there's tools out there now where we can reach out to visitors on our site, and we need to use those. And it's honestly easier for smaller stores, right? Because we're usually not suffering from like a mountain of traffic. You can actually have like personal interactions with most of the people who visit your site, and I think that's sort of a superpower that smaller stores have.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I actually wanted to jump straight into superpowers and think of like what sort of opportunities that they should be looking at. And Ruth, I would love to hear a little bit from you. Could you share some specific tactics that people could try today to increase conversions?
Yeah, sure. So I do want to add that one of the big challenges right now for e-commerce stores is the cost of acquisition. The competition is going painful. Acquisition is getting more and more expensive, and so you really want to focus on not only conversions but also getting the most out of each conversion that you get. So if I'm getting one order, I don't want this customer to only buy one product. I want this customer to really, explore the set of products and add more to the order and increase its value. So I think when we look at conversion rate, it's not just about getting the customer to the next step of the funnel and actually to end up buying, but also making sure that they actually add more products to the store and actually buy more, so that I have more money to play with, more budget to play with my advertising later. I really think, from my personal point of view, of course, upselling as an umbrella term is really something that you can use to both increase your conversion rate, but also your AOV. So when I say it's an umbrella term, it's not just upselling, it's also cross-selling, adding urgency, all of these little boosts to conversions that also add new elements to the order. So I think getting started with upselling both pre-purchase and post-purchase can really increase the conversions as well as the average order value and get customers to buy more, so that your store actually has more to play with and get over the obstacles of today's world.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. So this is our opening, and now we're jumping straight into a section where Jamila is actually your star, and bring her right in. And we're going to talk a little bit about how reviews help us also boost sales. So, Jamila, we all know how important reviews are, especially for businesses that are new to the market or constantly launching new products. So, should people collect reviews per SKU, or is it more important to get general brand reviews? And if you're starting and need to focus on one of those, we know all of them are important, but if you had to focus on one of those, what should it be?
Right. So I hate to be the person who's like, it depends, but it does depend on your brand. It depends on what you're selling. So if you have frequent launches and you have a diverse product range, then you want to be getting reviews for your SKUs, for specific SKUs. So if you're selling like mugs and binders and like things that make people feel at home, then you want to be focusing on the individual product reviews. But if you are like a print on demand company, and let's say you have a bunch of different designs, but they're all on the same shirt or they're all on the same hoodie, then it might not be so important to get reviews on every specific design. Whereas you can, with something like Farrah, you can group your product reviews. So you can say like, typically people will talk about how the shirt fits. They'll be like, oh, the design is great and the fit is great. Like the shirt is super comfortable. So it's not so important to get a review for every specific design, whereas you're more getting reviews for the shirt and the feel and how it fits. So you can group product reviews based on that. So again, it depends on your on what you're selling. The other thing is, if you're a new business, you might want to start with brand reviews and store reviews. So for example, there's a store that I personally love that's here in Calgary, and they started getting Google reviews, and they have like 200 Google reviews because they were just kind of starting to launch their products. They had a few core products, but they have a bunch of Google reviews. And then I helped them bring their reviews from Google into Farrah. And after that, after you started launching your brand, you can start to get reviews specific or product specific reviews. I do want to plug Farrah a little bit. The nice thing about Farrah is that when you send out a review request, you can get a review for a specific product, but you can also get a review for your brand. So that's kind of what I would say people should do. If you're just starting out, get brand reviews so people can know that you're trustworthy. People understand that if they buy a product and they don't like it, they might be able to send it back. So again, it depends on what you are selling, but typically brand reviews are good for everybody. And sorry, I want to point out one other thing is that when you're getting reviews, regardless of where it is on the internet, you really want to think about where your customers are. So maybe if your customers are a little bit older, they really love Facebook, then you want to try to get like Facebook reviews. But maybe your customers are on TikTok and you don't have a lot of following and people are going to be Googling your brand. You want to really start out by getting Google brand reviews. And then once you start growing, you can use an app like Farrah to import them into your store and show them on your site. So that's the answer.
Awesome. Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I almost just answered the next question, but I'll ask her anyway. So what are the 3 tactics that people can use to get their first 50 reviews?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is to create a really, really good unboxing experience. So you want to focus kind of on the delight that you're going to give your customer once they open your package. You want to give them kind of that wow moment, because you're more likely to get a photo or a video review or a tag on social media. So that's the first thing: having a great product, having a great experience, shipping it on time, that kind of thing. And then the other thing is so the second would be to follow up with your customers. So have an automatic review request, like through an app, or if you're super, super small and you're just starting out, like don't be afraid to send like a personalized email and say like, here's the link to leave me a review. How was it? When I was starting my business, this was a long time ago. When I was starting my business, we would ask people for reviews, and we did get a lot of reviews, like personally ask them for reviews. That's a super easy way to get reviews. And then the other thing that you can do, depending on your jurisdiction, is you can ask or you can offer incentives. So with Farrah, you can offer loyalty points through Smile, or you can offer discounts or cash back if you're on Shopify. So you can incentivize. But depending on where you live in the world, you have to say that you incentivize the review, or you might not be allowed to. So I'm not going to speak on all of the rules around the world, but that's a way to also get product reviews. And the last thing you can do is you can send out free product. You can send them out to influencers. I would say like micro influencers if you're smaller, or nano influencers. But those are like 3 ways to get reviews: great unboxing experience, following up, and incentivizing people.
Awesome. As a customer, I especially love the unboxing experience. And even if I get like a little letter, a little card, just saying, we're new or small, and yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so we jump into the next part, so which is how do we actually leverage those reviews once we get them?
Yes. So the best way to leverage your reviews on your site is to show them on the product page. A lot of people are looking for reviews on the product page. I know when I shop for clothes, I'm looking for the reviews. I want to see what people are saying, how it fits, if there's any stretch, anything like that. So that's going to reduce the friction of people buying because their questions are answered on the page. They're like, oh, other people like it. I feel okay buying it. The other thing that you can do is you can use it depends on if you've made people click like when they leave you a review that you can reuse it. But a really good way to use reviews is to reuse it in retargeting campaigns and ads. That's especially if they're like influencer vibe type videos. You can reuse those on TikTok, Instagram Reels. Those do really, really well. But you can even just like repurpose text reviews and use those in ads as on something like Facebook. The last thing is to repurpose reviews on social media. So that really helps to build a community. People are like, oh, this brand featured me. And then people are more likely to leave photo reviews for you if they know they're going to be featured on your social media. So, and this works with large brands and this works with really small brands. Even like brands that I've seen in the north of my province, they get lots of people taking photos of their pictures because they're like, oh, I used this on my knitting, or oh, I did this. So like repurposing on social is really, really important. But on the product page is probably the best way that you can truly control your reviews.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Jamila.
No
And
problem.
yeah, so we'll jump into a little conversation with Blair. Blair, let's get you on stage again.
Absolutely. Hey again.
Cool. So Blair, we're going to talk a little bit about customer support and how that impacts conversions. So let's start with an understanding of what kind of impact that you understand that high quality customer support can make for growing brands, especially if they're just starting out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I sort of alluded to this in the beginning, and I'll say first, like I have a bias, due to what we do, but like I believe that like proactive customer support is almost everything at this stage. I think it's I can't say everything, right? Because there's a lot of things that these small brands have to think about. But I think it's at least one of, if not the most important thing. But I think the proactive component there is super important. I think a lot is sort of self-evident about the importance of reactive customer support. If somebody has a problem, you should fix it. Like we should always be customer first when it comes to that. But I think sort of proactive is the missing piece for a lot of brands, and that's where the impact is almost infinite. I think like thinking about the shopping experience end to end, like again, to make like the real world comparison, I think like the difference and like the harsh contrast between the shopping experience somewhere like Walmart or your local big box store versus like a local boutique. I think one of the experiences here that I've had recently is like being on vacation in Vermont with my wife, and we just like went to like poke around downtown and walked into like a small store, walked into another small store, and we met like a woman who like made and printed her own clothes right in the shop, and we were talking to her for 20 minutes about her products, and they were like frankly massively overpriced, but we bought one because we had this really deep sort of like human conversation with somebody, and bought something that we might not have bought otherwise. And I think that's just like a perfect example of kind of like the impact of that proactive support. Certainly, I mean, you have to get the traffic first, but once they're there, offering sort of that level of interactivity is, I think, just like one of the most impactful things that you can do. And it's really just an extension of like your broader support strategy.
Awesome. I love it because it's like whatever it is that you're buying from someone that you kind of got to know the story of, it's not just the product anymore. You're actually buying the whole story. And whenever you look at that product, you're actually happy about it, right?
Yeah, no,
So,
that's absolutely the thing. I think people I think this is maybe a generalization, but when it comes to these like more boutique style brands, like people buy the story just as much as they buy the product.
Yeah, totally agree. Cool. And now let's talk about speed versus effectiveness. So, how can e-commerce owners actually balance those two factors when attending to customers' needs? So, we're talking a bit of more of a reactive way now of looking at customer support. And is one speed or effectiveness more important than the other
Yeah.
when you're actually scaling your brand?
Yeah, no, this is actually like this is a really good question. I think I have a bit of like maybe a bit of a cop-out answer depending on how you look at it. I think if you take the basic principles of good customer support as true, like, being customer centric, being willing to um, being willing to go the extra mile. If you believe that that is like table stakes, then I think like speed and effectiveness at this scale are actually basically the same thing. Speed is effectiveness. Attention spans are like so short. They're even shorter online. If you look at your Google Analytics, you'll see like your bounce time, like your time on page, sorry, before customers bounce is usually like very low. Customers aren't lingering around. If they do reach out to support through like say like live chat on site, for example, they're expecting like a near immediate response, and the best thing that you can do is give that to them. Otherwise, I think you're like at immediate risk of losing the customer. I think this is like one of the harsh realities of being a small business owner is, it's like it's hard to get away. And with e-commerce being sort of inherently global, we don't just have to be available quickly for 8 hours a day like we might in a real world setting, but we really just kind of have to be available for that speedy response all the time. And I think until recently, that's been like a real struggle. We've had ways to mitigate that in the past, right? Like some like legacy automation stuff in this, but like with the rise of AI recently in customer support, it is like all of a sudden actually like very feasible to give like near immediate responses that are like thoughtful and coherent and helpful, where near immediate means like seconds rather than minutes, whether I'm there or not. And I think that's something that, if we look back a year, maybe 18 months ago, that was like very cutting edge technology that was really maybe only available to the largest stores. But now, I mean, we're bringing it down market at Tidio. There's other players bringing it down market. There's like a lot of tools out there, whether it's us or somebody else, that can help you sort of get to that lightning quick response time. And I think that's just like a newly found superpower for small business owners.
Awesome. So that means there's no effectiveness without speed, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think it really, I think previously a lot of smaller brands probably shied away from offering live chat because it was hard to do, and it was hard to offer that time response. I think if we think about like other channels for support, things like email and ticketing, and I mean some brands I guess offer phone support. It's a little bit more rare, but there I think there's different expectations around speed, but I think with live chat it's especially interesting and important.
Cool. So now let's jump into 3 tactics that people can actually explore today for customer support.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think this to me is all about automation, and the way that I would frame this is kind of like a 3-step process, like 3 separate tactics that all add up to hopefully you having to deal with less support. And that's that dealing with less support makes it sound like support is a chore, and I don't want it to. I don't want it to sound like a chore, but we'll touch on that. I think like first tactic is like getting a really good sense of what the most common questions are that you deal with. Depending on how you're dealing with support today, maybe that's email, maybe you're using something for live chat. If you're like a very small store owner, I think like the most common scenario we see is like there's a Gmail inbox and people email it, or they submit a form and it lands in an inbox. I think this idea of like figuring out what your most common questions are for those smallest brands can be as simple as like using Gmail tags, just like going through your last like week or month of customer support interactions and just tagging them you're going to see trends, right? Like almost every store, the most common question is like, where is my order? I was expecting it to be here by now. And that's like a very easy one to tag. And once you start to see see what's going on there in the pool of interactions, then you can start to clear those out. And that's sort of, I think, the second tactic here is just like automating as much as we can. And there's different sort of layers to automation. First layer is really, I mean, it's not automation at all. It's not a technical solution. It's just like a knowledge solution. FAQs are obviously like the big thing here. Most customers are able to find the information that they need if you present it well. And so making sure that your sort of site content, your FAQs in particular, are sort of as fleshed out as possible. Second, kind of what we think of as like automations or flows or chatbots, but like not AI chatbots, but like more traditional sort of choose your own adventure style, I call it, chatbots, where like just prompt people with the common question of like, where's my order, and let them click and then automate that, send them to a tracking page hosted on site. There's like lots of tools that let you do that. And you can like immediately remove like 40-50% of your customer support interactions for some stores with like really simple automations. The next level of automation being kind of the more AI powered stuff that I mentioned, which is a more recent development, but can take you kind of even further. Those two combined, we see a lot of brands able to automate up to like 70% of their interactions, and that immediately takes a lot of weight off of your shoulders, which leaves room for the third tactic, which I think is really like take advantage of all of this time you've just saved by focusing on the like truly human interactions, being able to talk to people in a real way. If you're like selling dresses, being able to like have a conversation with somebody about like particularly like how they fit and like how they might fit their body, and helping them choose like a specific product. That's the type of interaction I think a lot of small business owners feel like they don't have time for, because they're drowned under kind of mundane questions. And so like, let's just like automate the mundane stuff so that we can focus on kind of the more human side of things, or those things where bringing humanity back into it can be super impactful.
Yeah, that's so great. So that's where they actually get more insight from, because that's where, the problem really is, like talking to customers. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Blair. And yeah, and then that leads us to the third part of our conversation, which is with Ruth. And now we're going to talk a little bit about upsell and how that impacts your conversions too. So Ruth, let's compare effort versus result when it comes to upselling. What are the basics everyone should do to get started?
So I think when you look at effort versus results, it's really easy to get started with upselling if you want to do something basic. It's very low effort, and you can just let it marinate and collect conversions and increase your average order value. I think if you want to get started, I would focus on just trying to get some form of upselling, cross-selling, or order boosting element in each step of the funnel. I mean, we all know the e-commerce funnel. Let's say it starts from the product page where the customer lands on your store, and then there's the cart, checkout, and post-purchase. You want to make sure that each one of these pages, each one of these steps has some sort of upsell, but it's really important to not overwhelm and spam our customers. I mean, these websites that you go into and they basically vomit pop-ups on you, and there's like jingles everywhere and things. If you're very determined, you might complete a purchase, but most people would just leave. So we don't want to do that to our customers. One example of how we could just take the concept of upselling throughout the entire funnel is, let's say, in the product page, we have some product recommendations, frequently bought together, a bundle, anything like that is embedded on the page. It's not a pop-up, it's not intrusive. And then on the cart page, you would have, let's say, a progress bar for free shipping, and maybe even a product that you recommend to add to the cart to get this free shipping. Checkout, the most sensitive area of the store. You really want to be careful. At most, I would add 1 or 2 upsells that are very minimal, that you add close to either the order summary or the next step button. And then you have, it depends what platform your store is on. But if you're on Shopify, you can very easily add the one-click upsells post-purchase between the checkout and the thank you page. These convert amazingly. I really recommend that everyone use them if you're on Shopify. There is no reason not to. And the thank you page, I can talk about the thank you page for a whole hour, so I won't do that. But you can add a simple pop-up or a product upsell that is embedded on the page. And you don't have to work too hard to just create the whole thing and let it sit. I think that the more that these things sit in your store and your customers see it, you start creating your own baseline of what does conversion rate look for me with and without upsells in my specific store. And then the next step would be to start optimizing that and start figuring out what can I do to increase this conversion rate. Again, always comparing to my past results rather than industry benchmarks, which I always think are a little too general.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like with those basics, it can already go a long way. Yeah, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how we could get even a little bit more advanced. So could you share with us 3 tactics that people can use today to level that up?
Yeah, sure. So I do want to say about these basics. One thing I kind of forgot to mention is most apps that you would use to add upsells and cross-sells to your store would probably have some, best practices, some defaults that allow you to get all of these things done pretty quickly. So it sounds like a lot, but it's the kind of things you can probably get started with very, very simply. But the next stage would be, first of all, like I said, starting to optimize. So one thing to do is start working on personalization and segmentation, which really come together. At the beginning, maybe you'll just show some dynamic recommendations that are based on dynamic recommendations from Shopify or from whatever tool you're using. But then you can add to that specific recommendations. Let's say the customer purchased a specific product, I'm going to show them a specific upsell. This customer is a woman, I'm going to show her a specific product compared to if it's a man. Where they're from, how long should shipping take? There's a lot of little things that really affect the purchase experience as well as the post-purchase experience, and you can use them to direct the exact recommendations to the exact people that need to see them. It's not just about using a tag of first name or something like that. Like most people, I think about that with personalization. It's about showing them the right thing at the right time. So that's one thing. The second thing is testing, always testing. Like I said, in the beginning, you're building your own baseline. You're figuring out what your conversion rate is, and now it's a time to improve it. And the way to improve it is to always try new things. You could test with the products that you offer. You can test with the text that you use, the discounts that you use, and the types of elements that you use. On the product page, is it a pop-up or is it an embedded product recommendations widget, or is it both? There's really a lot of ways to get into it and do different things, and it can be very overwhelming in the beginning, which is why I would use that as an advanced technique. And then the last thing is to use the thank you page and the order status page as a landing page. I really think that this is a little more towards the retention scale than actual conversion rate, but these pages by default have a 0% conversion rate. You really, people get there, and you as the store owner can do a lot with this. You have their attention. The next natural step is to just close the browser and leave the store. But if you optimize this page as a landing page and you actually capture their attention while they're there and get them to either buy again or even just engage with you in a different way. It could be a video, a survey, just some text, whatever you want to show them or you want to ask from them, you can do that on these pages. And because they already purchased, there's no risk of losing this purchase, which is something you really want to be careful of with pre-purchase upselling.
Oh my gosh, I love all of those. And as a customer myself, like I feel like even with the basics, like I feel like I'm actually almost mad at brands that, will charge for shipping but won't offer me like valuable options of products that I might want to add to my order so that
Yeah.
I get free shipping. So I totally agree with you that customizing that experience is totally key. And I love all the rest too, especially like thinking of the thank you page as a landing page never occurred to me. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And what are the differences to consider when you're upselling prior to order checkout compared to post order checkout?
So I think the first difference, which brings with it the rest of the differences, is who are you upselling to? Pre-purchase or pre-checkout. I'm going to consider the checkout part of the pre-purchase process because the customer hasn't paid yet. So pre-purchase, this is a potential customer. This is just a visitor or a potential customer. Post-purchase, this is a customer. So it's like two different people. It's the same person, but the profile of them is different. So you do need to treat them differently. And because of that, with pre-purchase, one of the most important things is to not let your attempt at upselling hurt your conversion rate. And you can do it a little too easily. If you overwhelm the customer, if you give them too much, they're going to end up leaving. They're not going to increase their average order value. It's going to be zero. So you want to be very strategic with what upsells you show and very careful about it, versus post-purchase where they just purchased. The worst that could happen is that they don't purchase again. But this is a customer, and now you're working on the retention, so you can really be a little more free with what you show them, with how much you show them, and with what offers you're giving them. The second thing is discounts. Discounts is a tool. Discounts are a tool for e-commerce stores to really increase conversions and get people to buy. But if you use it a lot, then you kind of burn down this tool and customers will not be excited about it. So if you're discounting pre-purchase, you want to give smaller discounts. And again, this is the number exactly is very specific to each store and whatever their profit is. So you want to give smaller discounts and you want to give them it at the right times. Just for coming into my store, that doesn't mean you deserve a discount. You should do something for it. Maybe add a product to the cart. Maybe add, like we said, the free shipping bar. You want to make them work for it a little bit. Versus post-purchase, they've worked for it now. They've purchased. That's like the ideal thing that you want them to do. It's time to reward them for that. That's one. And second, they just got probably some discounts from your store. Most stores have pre-purchase discounts. So when you're discounting post-purchase, you want to give a bigger discount. I mean, this person just purchased. You want them to feel like an appreciated customer that you want to give a discount to. And you want to make it time sensitive a lot of times too, because that works really well post-purchase. I think these are the main differences. The one thing that these things have in common, pre and post-purchase, is that your goal is to increase the average order value. You want to increase the order value of this specific order, and if you do it for each order, you're going to increase the average of your store, generate more revenue, more profits, and just have more tools to really work on whatever it is you need to do to advance your business. It's just different approaches of doing that at each stage.
Awesome. That's so cool. And I actually feel like when we get something after we make a purchase, like we get like a coupon for like $30 free, whatever. I feel like if I'm not using that money, I'm losing money, So
Exactly.
I'm actually excited to kind of like, no, I need to use this coupon now that I got it. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. And let's bring everyone into stage again. And let's talk a little bit about, you just mentioned benchmark numbers, and now I'm curious. So what would be some of the industry standards that marketers should take into consideration where, well, they are growing their businesses. Let's start with you, Ruth. So what are some of the upsell industry numbers they should be looking at?
So I'm gonna add a disclaimer. Like I mentioned a little bit. The thing about benchmarks, I think they are very general, and I think people sometimes get into, oh, am I like in the benchmark? Am I like in the right number? And the truth is that each store is so different, and e-commerce is such a wide, world of type of business, basically, that whatever the benchmark is, you should benchmark yourself. You should benchmark yourself and try to improve it. Your competition is with your past conversion rate or average order value or whatever you're measuring, and not with other stores. But that being said, what you can see is, first of all, that the farther down the line of the e-commerce funnel the customer is, the bigger the conversion rate. So if you look at the stores that are doing well on the product page, they could see 1 or 2% conversion rate, versus on the cart page, they could go up to 6 or 10% conversion rate. And then post-purchase, it's a lot of the times even higher, and it could be more in the lines of like 15%, 16%. It does depend on the number of orders you have post-purchase, because if you don't have a lot of orders, your conversion rate post-purchase is also going to be pretty low. And the interesting part is, and that is like a metric that I've heard a few years ago, and it always is in the back of my head, and that is that a 5% increase in your customer retention and your repeat order value, which goes to the post-purchase section, can increase your profitability by 75%. So it's really all about testing it out and not just chasing the next order, but actually chasing the customers that have already purchased and getting them to purchase again and to become loyal brand members.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. Jamila, and how about you? Like, what can you say about industry benchmarks for reviews?
Yeah, so like Ruth was saying, it really depends across, like for something like Shopify, it's 7%, between 6 and 7%. But for something like Amazon, it's 1 to 2%, right? And even when you get into verticals, dental is 3.2% review response rate. Those are the percentages I'm talking about. Whereas something like plants is a 14% response rate, right? So like people who love plants are going to be talking about their plants. But when it comes to average review response rates for Farah, we're above industry, 8.3%, but for Shopify, it's 7%. For Wix, it's 12% review response rate. And for something like BigCommerce, it's an 11% review response rate. So if you're getting above 10%, above 20%, you're probably doing really well. But if you're in a general goods store, then 5% review response rate is decent. Again, it depends on who you are, your brand, how much your customers love you. Some people, they're going to buy a product from you. They're going to review every single product that they buy from you. So your review response rate is going to be high. So if you have a really good connection with your customer, then you are probably going to get a higher review response rate. But again, anything above 10% is really good. My store gets like 20%. But people like
Awesome.
know me, and on our page, like I have my picture and stuff there, right? So people feel like they're talking to you. So it depends.
So that's another tactic right there. Put your photo on the
exactly. You have to make people like you, and then they'll buy more from you, right? They'll try that upsell, or they'll leave you a review because they're like, oh, I like this person. I like this brand. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Jamila. And Blair, how about customer support? What are the industry standards we should be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate Ruth and Jamila saying everything about it depends, because it's very true. But I think with customer support, I think I don't have to apply that disclaimer too much. I think it's like a little bit more universal. And I think it's there's a bunch of numbers that you can measure when it comes to customer support, right? You can measure like cases closed, positive resolutions, how long it takes to resolve tickets on average, all these sorts of things. I think like what most brand operators should be thinking about, especially in the early stages, is like time to first response. I think that's like the big one, especially when it comes to live chat. I've already talked a lot about kind of the impact of AI on that, but I think like a good, without using any AI bots, I think like really 1 to 2 minutes is about the max that you can get away with on live chat. Obviously, like during business hours, depending on size of your team, like that can be really hard. Honestly, it really is. But like we talked about short attention spans, like nobody's sitting on your live chat widget for multiple minutes waiting for a response. So it's a tough benchmark to hit, but I think people should either take the painful route of trying to do what they can to hit that with humans, or using automation to get there. And I think it is like very, very, very doable with automation. For emailer tickets, there's obviously like more leeway. There's like less expectation of an immediate response. I think like generally like 8 hours is the way that I think of that as like a reasonable benchmark, and that includes all hours, right? So like that's sort of like an O kind of response rate, but during business hours, it should be we should try to be quicker than that. I think something in like the 1 to 4 hour, depending on really just kind of how much time and energy you can dedicate to support, is a good place to hit.
Nice. Thank you, Blair. And we actually have a question here for Ruth. Let me show it on the screen. So, hi, Ruth. How can we personalize upsell offers based on individual customer preferences, purchase history, or browsing behavior to make them more compelling and relevant?
That's a great question. So it depends on what product or app you're using to upsell. I can talk about how you can do it in Reconvert because I'm not necessarily familiar with the rest of the competition. But in Reconvert, you have what we call trigger-based funnels. You can define a trigger that is really specific. Like it can just be customer purchased a specific product or from a specific collection, and then you choose what to show them based on which trigger they fit into. So you want to choose a solution that allows you to do something like that. It allows you to create as detailed as you want funnels, but also always create a fallback funnel because depends on the size of your catalog. It might be impossible to do it for each product. So that's about the specific products that they might have purchased. When we look at the rest of the browsing behavior and purchase history, there are some apps that you could use that have very smart product recommendations engines. We integrate with some of them. We also integrate with Shopify's recommendation engine. There's also like one that is built in. So it's really about finding the solution that works best for your customers and your store and using that. But there are a lot of tools in the market that you just need to choose from to implement that. And you want to, on the one hand, be as granular as possible and get into the specific things that you know would work on your customers. But on the other hand, you don't want to, it doesn't have to be perfect from the beginning. Start with something general, and then whenever you see a trend, you see, oh, I see everyone who buys this also tends to like this product. Create a specific trigger for that. Create a specific upsell for that. Whenever you find a trend, and slowly build it to something more robust.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. And we also got a question for Jamila here. So what are the best timings and placements on the website to prompt customers for reviews without being intrusive? Jamila, oh, I think your mic is off. Let's unmute it.
I'm muted. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
So sorry. On the website, on the product page, the leave a review. You see it on Amazon. You can do it in Farah too. There's like a little leave a review button, and you can make it so that only people who have purchased that product will see that button. So that's a place where you can put it. If you have customer pages and people can see their orders, that's another easy place to ask for reviews without being intrusive. And then, of course, we think that you should ask for a follow-up. So like if people want to hear from you, if they've opted in to hear from you, then asking for a review through email is another really great place. That's not particularly on the website, but another place on the website is if you are offering customer support and after you've resolved an issue and people are really happy with you, then you can say, oh, can you leave a review? And it feels a little bit less intrusive. But for like super passive, just on the product page, it's a good place to ask for a review on the site without being like, leave me a review. And they can do it on their own time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamila. And as we're wrapping up, I have just one last question for Blair. So Blair, what is one piece of advice you would give to e-commerces just starting out in their D2C journey today?
Yeah, no, for sure. This is a fun one because I can take it wherever I want. I think like one of the big things here, and I think Jamila, you mentioned in sort of the intro segment, like sort of customer journey stuff, and I think like that's like really. I think that's like an area of focus, or should be, for a lot of small brands. I think like one of the interesting things is like there's a bunch of communities for like small brand operators. There's like Facebook groups, and there's like a subreddit where people post their stores for reviews and feedback. And I think like I like to browse through those, and I think some of the feedback that I see just like repeatedly are things that could be like easily avoided by just like watching somebody shop on your store for the first time, somebody unfamiliar, right? And I think there's this like assumption that most purchases happen by somebody lands on the homepage and then they click through to a product page and then they add it to their cart and then they check out and everybody's happy. And I think that is like a nice like idealized form of shopping, but it's not actually realistic. In most cases, people are taking a more convoluted journey through the site, and they want to see what you have to say about yourself and your products and your brand. And I think those additional steps reveal things like, okay, but now I want to get back to shopping, but there's no easy way because my menu is too small and there's no call to actions anywhere. And it's like, I think those are the type of things where like just watching somebody organically use your site for the first time can be just like very eye-opening and help you avoid a lot of the like really common pitfalls that I see around very small brands.
Awesome. So really paying attention to the experience you're providing and how you can actually enhance and optimize that experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. I think we actually have a little bit extra time, so I think I'm just going to jump into one question for all of you. I'd love for you to just jump in and answer as ideas come up. So what are the most unconventional ways that you have seen people use to boost conversion so far?
I'm
Any
thinking.
Ruth, do you have anything in mind?
I'm thinking too. I can tell you about one of our customers that I really like. They sell plants, and it's not exactly a conversion boosting activity. But what they did is they basically don't only sell plants. They're for people like me who kill their plants, and they teach you how to take care of the plant. So what they did is they created a funnel where, depending on the specific plant that you purchased, you see a different video on the thank you page telling you how to take care of it. And they're educating you about the product that you just purchased. I think it's creating more engagement with the brand. It's encouraging the confirmation bias of, yeah, I made a good decision. They're teaching me how to take care of my plant. And it's a really good way to not necessarily increase conversions in this case, but increase retention. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's so cool.
I hope you're keeping your plants alive.
Yeah.
One thing that I saw, okay, so I just bought these like reusable paper towel things, and it's not unconventional, but the way that they did their ad, I don't know if you guys have seen the rise in like street style TikTok interviews and that kind of thing. Like those are super popular. So they had this street style ad, and I was watching it because I was like, oh, maybe it's just like it felt very organic. And then they had a really, really good retargeting campaign. They would like follow up with why it's sustainable, and I would see it in my feed all the time, and I knew I needed it. I was just like too lazy, and I always got distracted. So like really getting on trends and capturing people's attention with ads is a really good way to boost conversion rates. And I didn't buy for like another 2 weeks, but I have like 3 sets that I put in here and like my Airbnb and stuff like that. So it's like you want to grab people's attention, and that will boost conversion rates over time. And if people aren't ready to buy right away, retargeting still is tried and true. Okay, I am living proof of that.
I always get caught in those videos too. They're so good. Oh my gosh. Cool. Blair, do you have anything to add to this?
I don't. I don't know how unconventional it is. So I'm gonna sort of steal this question to just talk about something that excites me, and it has nothing to do with what we do. But we're obviously thinking about AI a lot, and I think like when I say it's not necessarily unconventional, I think like it is actually pretty rare right now. I don't think it's like widely adopted, but I think it's going to be like even more so, is just like other uses of generative AI to boost conversions, right? Like one of the newer use cases that we've seen is like AI generated product photos. And this is like something that is like very doable now and very cheaply for like a fraction of the cost of what it used to cost to take like really beautiful product photos. Moving beyond just kind of like product on white background to like action shots that used to cost, you might spend thousands of dollars on a photo shoot. And now you like don't necessarily need to do that as a brand to have like really, really professional looking photos. And like I say, like it's not unconventional weird, it's just unconventional. Not enough people are doing it, but I think we're going to see that.
Yeah, I've even seen some videos that are AI created, and they look AI created, but they're not like so obvious. So they're like,
Yeah.
this is like, all Pilates took me from this to this, but it's not a real model. It's just like an AI.
Yeah, well, and I think like I think you're definitely right that it's like right now, like sometimes you can pick out that it is like an AI generated thing, but then to like think back that this was like totally impossible like 1 or 2 years ago, and now you can sometimes tell that it's AI generated, I think is just like a good indication of like how good it's going to get over the next few years.
Right? It's kind of scary too, though. I don't
A little
know.
It's a little scary. It's a brave new world out there.
It is, right?
No, not Brave New World.
What?
I actually think sometimes being able to tell that it's AI is not a bad thing. Like some customers would see a video of a product done with AI and be like, oh, cool, they're using AI to market their products. And it's not necessarily a bad thing right now until we get to the point where we can tell. Yeah.
until it's everywhere, right? Like I do think that it's like it's one of those things that is benefited by not everybody doing it right now. I think it's probably gonna get played out eventually once everybody catches on.
Yeah. And I feel like it depends on your customer as well, like your audience. Like some people will be more open to innovative ways of seeing the product or seeing, and other people will like tradition and feel like they can trust whatever the brand is advertising for. So yeah, cool. Okay, we still have like a minute and a half, so I'm just gonna jump in and ask one last question. So I just asked you about advices, Blair. I was wondering if anyone else has any other advice they would like to give to people just starting off the D2C commerces.
I did want to mention that since we've come through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, a lot of the people that you've already gotten are looking for Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. So you should definitely segment them separately going forward, especially in email when you're following up with them, when you're offering certain types of deals, because like these people are most likely deal seekers. So if they've only purchased from you once and they purchased during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, probably segment those people out in your email or anywhere else. And you can I think you'll have a better time marketing to them going forward than if you just market to them as if they were like regular year-round customers. So I just wanted to bring that up.
That's great. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jamila. Didn't add anything, Ruth, at all?
Yeah, I just want to say that the thing that I think you need to focus on when you're first starting out is the one next thing that's going to generate you more revenue, more traffic, and more sales. We talked about a lot of things here, and it can get a little overwhelming when you hear a lot of advice, and it's all good advice. So just choose one thing, do that imperfectly, and improve on that slowly, and like compete with yourself all the time for the results, not with anyone else.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you so much, you guys. You're amazing today. And yeah, I hope everyone at home gets to use all of those tactics and ideas into improving their own conversions. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you all soon.
Thanks.
you.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Everybody.
And so we're jumping into stage with Jacob and Casey for the next session tonight. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Casey.
Hi, guys. Hi, Jacob. Hi, Mariana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So now we're going to talk about hacks to scale your e-commerce email marketing. So we're going straight into email marketing now. And today we have Casey Luck. Casey is the founder and CEO of Luck & Co., an agency helping 7- and 8-figure e-commerce brands maximize their email and SMS revenue. Casey and her team frequently double the email and SMS revenue of brands they work with. So their secret, a combination of customer-centric approach, being good with numbers, and having fun with content. So thank you very much for being here, Casey.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm so excited to talk about email, my favorite thing.
And we have Jacob George here with us today. Jacob's true passion is problem solving. With 5+ years of experience in software sales, working with leading tech companies from Freshworks to Mailmodo, he's currently pioneering Mailmodo's growth in North America. So thank you so much for being with us here, Jacob.
Thank you, Mariana. It's a pleasure to be here, and with Casey as well. Looking forward to this chat.
Yeah,
Me
so
too.
let's jump in it, straight in it. So let's talk a little bit about challenges across industries. Casey, I have a first question for you. Do you see common email marketing challenges across different verticals at Luck & Co., and do any of them stand out as particularly challenging?
I would say that the challenges are frequently very similar. The first one is always just growing the list. Everybody wants to grow their email list, their SMS list faster. And it's never growing fast enough for most brands. So that's challenge number one. The second challenge is probably just keeping your engagement high. So things like open rates and click rates. Open rates are higher these days just because of the iOS 15 update. So they're a little bit inflated. So it's harder to gauge what's your actual open rate. But when it comes to click rate, it's very easy to track. And, there are more and more emails in people's inboxes. So it's only getting harder and harder to stand out and actually getting people to engage with your content. So that's challenge number two. And challenge number three, maybe I would say that it's connecting with the audience. So obviously each brand has their own audience and their own voice that they use. And oftentimes the brand likes to do things the way they think they're right. Even yesterday I had a conversation with a brand we're working with, and they're like, oh, why don't we just send 2 emails per month and talk about what we think is important, like our YouTube video and a new product drop. I was like, wait, pause. Can you hear yourself? You want to talk about what you think is important. Did you ask what is important to your customer? So really trying to get into your customers and your subscribers' shoes and understand what they're thinking about, how they're thinking about your product category, what's going through their mind, and what would actually help you connect with them. I think very few brands actually do that. And it's a very, it's not a super tangible thing. You can't measure it. You can measure it, but it's not a direct measurement. And that's why it's so elusive. But I think if you get that right, everything else becomes easier with email marketing and with all of your other marketing channels.
Yeah.
I love that. Would you like to add anything to that, Jacob?
I mean, no, I think Casey, you're absolutely right. Especially with the brands wanting to say what they want and what their voice is, right? And sometimes you forget that your customers are coming to you already for your voice. Now, let's get into the products. Let's introduce them to what your philosophy is. And these are, I think, crucial things that brands from an early stage could do with something as simple as a welcome series. And that's something that I see that from small companies that are just starting out to much larger companies that they don't utilize that initial first welcome email well to understand their users. So one of the few things that I see that can help is just a welcome series. It's so easy.
Okay, yes,
Yeah,
that makes
for
a lot of
sure.
sense. And actually, so we were talking about like before, like some um, cross-industry challenges. And now, if we focus on e-commerce businesses and challenges that they typically face, what do you think those challenges are, and how does email marketing address these issues? I'll go into Casey.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. I actually, honestly, I was talking about everything I was talking about is about e-commerce because we only work with e-commerce brands. That's what we specialize in. We don't actually work with any other types of businesses. But the challenges I mentioned are true for all different verticals. So whether you're selling apparel or sports goods or skincare or really anything, if you're in e-commerce, regardless of your industry inside e-commerce, those are the very common challenges, and they're true for all companies. The second part of your question, what was it? Like, what's the most challenging?
How
How do I
can you
address it?
address those issues? Yeah.
Yeah, well, if I go like one by one back to the challenges that I mentioned, the first one is growing your list. It's something that we focus a lot here at Luck & Co, and that is simply, like the easiest way to address it is to have a high converting pop-up on your website. And a lot of brands and a lot of email teams kind of have it as like the pop-up is a side thing that they do, like, oh yeah, and we also do a pop-up. We focus on the pop-up a lot. And we continuously track the submit rate, because the higher that submit rate, the faster your list grows, the faster your revenue email grows. It's just a central thing that has an effect on everything you do in email marketing. So really paying attention to your pop-up, not just like creating it and then leaving it, but continuously A/B testing it. Like literally always be running an A/B test on your pop-up is something that I recommend to all of the brands. In terms of engagement with email, here you really just need to continue being very creative all the time, which is tough. It's tough enough to be creative, but it's very tough to be creative all the time, especially when you're sending like 2 to 3 emails per week. But finding ways to visually present information that actually grabs people's attention. And the best test of that is simply send yourself a test. Like send a test of the email to your inbox, open it on your phone, open it on your computer. Does it grab your attention? I just find that to be the best test. And if we're talking a little bit more tactical, we like doing we like adding a lot of engagement into our emails. So things like, oh, can I hover over like images and it would open up certain things in the email? Or can the user take certain actions inside the email? And not all email platforms actually allow that. Like there are not enough features in many email platforms. We find our ways around and become a little bit hacky. But I know that I think Mailmodo is like, that's what it's created for, is to create emails where like you can add stuff to cart inside the email. Like that's really cool. It's very rare right now. So anything that's rare is going to perform very well, because any tactic, any hack anybody shares, the more people use it, the less effective it becomes. And I see very few emails where like you can actually do stuff in the email. So that's definitely a very effective way to address email engagement. And connecting with the audience, there are a few things. one thing you can do is when you do a pop-up, make it a multi-step pop-up, where in the first step you ask for the person's email address, but in the second pop-up you actually ask something about the user, the visitor. So are you shopping for yourself or for others? What is the thing that you are looking for in X? And like X is your product category, right? Like when you're shopping underwear, are you looking for comfort? Are you looking for a variety of colors? Are you looking for that the materials are sustainable? So really understanding what is driving the purchasing decision. And collect that data through the pop-up, run surveys, send the survey to your audience through an email. People actually love that. And we love that because we learn so much about the audience. And then the important thing is actually take the time to analyze all of the data that you collected and be like, oh, okay, so 50% of my audience is actually not shopping for themselves when they get to my website. They're shopping for a gift. What does that mean for my marketing? How does that change how I talk to people in my welcome flow? How does that change how I talk to people in my abandoned checkout flow? So collecting data through different ways, through a pop-up, through surveys, through actually talking to people. I actually love doing that, and I don't think enough brands do it, reaching out to people and be like, hey, would you be willing to talk to me on the phone for like 15 minutes? We really want to learn more about our people. And people actually love that. It's very cool. So collecting data and then analyzing data and using it in your marketing. That's how you connect better with your audience. I don't know, Jacob, do you have anything to add? How else can people address all of these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously different solutions out there, Casey. I think you gave a good idea as to how you can touch upon different topics, from customer acquisition costs, customer retention. If I have to just break it down into challenges that I've seen e-commerce businesses help and how email solves for it, I would break it down into mainly 6 things. Customer acquisition costs is always, acquiring new customers can be expensive. Everyone knows that. That's where email campaigns can be cost effective. And just bringing a lower CAC and increasing your conversion using personalization, promotional offers. So it just becomes easier. And like you said, Casey, personalization and data collection is so important, because the kind of targeting that you do, and at what journey are you hitting them with personalized information, can build upon that trust and loyalty that you are having with your end customer. So I think it beautifully connects from when you're looking at different channels, at least with email. Start with the story, like with your welcome series. I'm saying it over and over again, but I think one thing I want to drive home to whoever's watching is, it's important for all these challenges to come together from the first interaction that you have with your customer. So building a trust and loyal customer base is so important when you have so many channels today, and email can be your most cost effective and easiest one, I would say. And obviously drizzle in the interactivity and you stand out a little more as well. And I think just overall leveraging email marketing effectively, Casey, you would know best, for different e-commerce businesses as well. You can create a more engaging, personalized experience for customers, ultimately driving your sales, and you can even foster longer relationships. But yeah, that's like my 2 cents on what I think your typical challenges are and how email can help with that.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I love that you brought in
Go
the customer acquisition cost, because that's not something we usually work with because we don't touch acquisition,
Yeah.
but it's obviously like probably the biggest challenge for e-commerce brands right now. Customer acquisition costs are going up like crazy. Yeah, and a lot of the things that I talked about, like learning about your audience more, asking those questions in the pop-up, that gives you an opportunity to segment your flows, to segment your campaigns. That that adds personalization, that leads to a higher conversion rate. You're converting more people, and as a result, your customer acquisition cost goes down. So I love how you beautifully tied all of that in together.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Mariana, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say that one takeaway that I get from this is that I feel like we don't learn enough from sales people, because I feel like our email marketing is almost like you have like this scalable sales team, like kind of, because you can segment your people into groups, and then you can send them like promotion stuff and whatever things that actually create value to their journeys. And at the same time, a lot of times, like one simple thing like you mentioned, Casey, which is just like asking the client, like the customer, what is it that they're actually looking for, or why they're here, and so what's the reason why they're here. That's what the salesperson would ask in the first place. They would never kind of like try to sell something without asking what the customer is going through and what their need is, right? So I feel like marketing, as marketers, this is so important, and sometimes we just like forget and that we have to ask stuff from the customer before we actually start kind of like exposing them to a lot of whatever ads or promotions and stuff. So yeah, thank you so much. Let's jump into a little bit of best practices, and I would love if you could summarize. Do you have like a way to summarize your email marketing into like a playbook or framework of a few like key points or an acronym, Casey?
We don't have an acronym, but I can describe how we think about e-commerce marketing in general, and then how we approach email marketing specifically high level. Hopefully this high level is helpful for people. But it actually ties into something that Jacob was talking about. But the way we view e-commerce marketing in general is in 3 groups of activities: acquisition, conversion, and retention. And historically, acquisition has been the most popular part of this trio, and everybody was talking about acquisition. It's super sexy. Everybody was like talking on Facebook how to do Facebook ads. And then iOS 15 happened, and then other iOS updates happened, and now acquisition is becoming harder and harder. And as a result, people are turning more to conversion and retention, and are paying more attention to conversion and retention, which is great. But all 3 are important. So acquisition is how you get people to your site. Like, how do you drive traffic to your website, which is your online shop? And like, without that, nothing else happens, because everything happens on your website. So acquisition is super important. As soon as somebody is on your site, then conversion is important. So how do we turn this visitor into a customer? And like under each of these 3, there's like a ton we can talk about. So this is really high level, but hopefully it helps people like think about marketing from this like high standpoint. So conversion, how do we convert these visitors into customers? And there's conversion that happens directly on the website, and there's a field that's super interesting called conversion rate optimization, CRO, right? What do we do on our website so that our website converts better? How do we simplify the checkout process? How do we design our product pages in such a way that they convert higher? So all of that. But then there's a lot of conversion that happens in email. So whoever didn't convert on the website right away, our job, like our literally Luck and Co's job, is to get their email address and then try to convert them through our flows and through our campaigns. So conversion can happen in many different places. But then the third part, which is probably has been the most overlooked historically, but thankfully brands are paying more attention to it now, is retention. So once somebody bought and became a customer, what do I do to make them super happy, amazingly happy, and then bring them back and get them to buy with me again? So that's like high level looking at marketing, e-commerce marketing in general. When it comes to email marketing, also super high level. First thing, get people's email address or phone number through a pop-up. So a pop-up is like at the top. I cannot do this where it translates to the camera. The pop-up is at the top, and like it drives everything in email. Like if I don't have your email address, I can't send you flows, I can't send you campaigns. So pop-up. And then under that, there's flows, so automated email sequences, and then campaigns. And it's not an acronym, but it's like a motto that we use at Luck & Co, which is everything that can be automated should be automated. So we pay a lot of attention to email flows and email automations, not only because like it simplifies your job, it automates stuff, and it automates your revenue. But also, automations and flows are the most personalized emails that you can send, because you get a lot of customers and information, not necessarily customers, visitors, users, information, and data, which you can use directly in those emails. So meaning, if they are viewing a product, you know which product they're viewing, and you can use the product name in your email. That's not something you can do in a campaign. So just like by default, by definition, flows and automations can be very personalized, and they're also very timely, because you send those emails exactly at the time when the person is performing the action, or around that time. And so they're just going to hit home really well with your users, with shoppers, with customers. So automate everything that you can, and then after that, move on to campaigns. And with campaigns, the again, high level, super important thing: pay a lot of attention to segmentation. Don't blast your entire list. Segmentation is something that a lot of founders struggle with. It's complex. It's not always straightforward, but I recommend figuring out if you're doing email marketing by yourself, and you don't have a professional team helping you, take the time to figure out the segmentation. It's going to pay off. So I don't know how to put this into an acronym.
Yeah, I don't think you have to. I think that's awesome. That's really great. And one thing that I get from all of this, is to actually have to start. You have to start at a certain point and then learn as you go as well. Like, pay attention to data and all of that. So that's really great. Thank you, Casey. I have a question for you now, Jacob. You always mention, and you've mentioned already a couple of times, about how onboarding and welcome emails are key for keeping clients. Any chance you could share 3 tips for nailing a welcome series?
Sure. I mean, Casey already gave us some tidbits there that I think should be drilled into marketers' heads, starting from segmentation. I mean, take time there. I mean, the importance of a well-crafted email series is so crucial for creating a positive first impression and just fostering customer engagement from the get-go. So the first point I would definitely start with is segmentation for personalization, and I'll break it down. There are 3 things, right? So I'll break it down by tactic and why it's effective. So when you're segmenting your new subscriber base based on their preferences, their behaviors, or the source from which they joined your email list, just knowing that is going to give you more attention to detail and how you should be targeting your welcome emails that align with their interests on what they clicked or just how they discovered your brand. You make a more immediate and relevant connection. So, for example, if a subscriber signed up through a promotion or a specific product category, you can tailor the welcome emails to highlight products in that category. As simple as that.
Mhm.
I think another one is just gradually introducing them and educating your customer base. And as a tactic, designing a series of emails that gradually introduce new subscribers to your brands, products, and just values overall. So provide helpful tidbits and guide them through different aspects of any product in your brand. If you're multi-brand, how a different brand could actually help that user. And why this becomes effective is it becomes an opportunity to educate your new subscribers about what your uniqueness or your value that you offer comes out there. And instead of overwhelming them with too much information in a single email as soon as they sign up or as soon as they show some side of interest, which would essentially eventually hurt you, I would say, in the long run. I think this could just include an introductory email about your brand story, a follow-up highlighting your best-selling products, or just tips on getting the most out of their purchases. So simple things like that. And finally, I think incentivizing your audience sometimes helps. So incentives or exclusive offers. Now, how this can come in as a tactic is you can gamify your emails with Mailmodo. That's one little bit of a flex I'm doing there with Mailmodo. But essentially, you have exclusive discounts, promotions, or an early access to a new product that's coming in. So just incentivizing your users from the beginning to engage more with that specific channel can go a long way. And why it's effective, it just offers, or rather encourages your new subscribers to make that first purchase. So when Casey was talking about acquisition, then conversion, this is your perfect opportunity to personalize, segment, and then include an incentive to convert. And yeah, I guess those are three tactics that I could share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. And now I would love to hear from you, Casey, about some innovative strategies. You mentioned that a lot of times when people start using the hacks that we start sharing, they stop working as well. But would you feel comfortable of sharing some of the hacks that you use most and that you've seen be more effective with your clients?
Yeah, I'll share some,
Okay,
but
let's
not
do
all.
those.
I don't know. Do you think I can share my screen? Do I click present?
Yeah.
Will it work?
Let's
I'm afraid to
that.
like break everything. If everything breaks, I'm sorry. But one hack that I wanted to share is that interactivity that we've been adding to emails. I'm just going to share the entire screen.
Okay, let's see.
Whoa, there's a lot. Entire screen. There we go. Can you guys see Tokimat's email?
Yes.
Okay, so the thing we do, so like email, blah, blah. And then in this email, we're talking about their safety certifications, which for a lot of brands we work with, like they're very careful about the environment and safety and stuff like that. So how do we talk about all of these boring certifications and tell people what they mean in an effective way? So we designed this interactive way to do this directly in email. So it only shows up on Hover. And this type of thing allows us to pack a lot more information into an email than it looks like from the first glance. And that's important because a lot of people like glance through the emails, right? If they see something that's scary because there's just like way too much, they're not going to read. Here's another way in which we implemented that for another brand, Water eStore. So they talk a lot about water and the quality of water, and there's a lot of information that we need to give to people in emails. Again, how do we pack that into an email? We have like this feature where people can get all of the info they need depending on what their water looks like. If it's yellow, if it's gray, very fun. If it's milky white water. And then like you can also apply this to like more typical D2C brands, so apparel, skincare, and stuff like that. Like even when you're introducing different colors for your new product, it can look this way. And this gives people a chance to like actually spend some time with your email and interact with it a little bit, and then click around a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, I love all of those. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so cool. So that makes your email kind of look like a landing page. So that's awesome. And so we're close to wrapping up. I have one last question for you guys. So what is the one tactic that everyone should go and try right now?
Jacob, you go.
No, I'll
You're gonna let me go?
I'm building off of you, so you go first.
What is one tactic, everybody? Well, it would be good for me to say, like, go try this tactic that I just showed. Go try building interactive emails. The stuff that we just saw, it's like complex and advanced. It's not easy to make. A beginner wouldn't be able to make it like by themselves, but I'm sure if they use Mailmodo, you guys probably offer a bunch of that stuff out of the box. So there you go. Go try Mailmodo and create some interactive emails.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, try Mailmodo for sure. No, but what I was rather saying is a tactic. Interactive emails, definitely. And like I said from the beginning of this, in just starting your welcome sequence with personalization. So, I mean, I don't think we have the time for me to present, but ideally, if you sign up for the free trial, you can just meet with our team. And one of the first things I essentially encourage all e-commerce D2C brands to do is have a simple interactive survey, just asking them, or just have radio buttons, just asking them what caught their interest. And from the next email, you're hitting them with products and brands that are relevant to their interest. So just that simple action, I think, will help you not just convert, but build your retention. So it's not just acquisition that we focus on, it's also retention as well as conversion. So you get all three with Mailmodo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. And thank you, Casey. We actually, I had a lot of other questions for you. There's this one that also came up. But Casey, I'm going to send this question your way, and maybe you can answer that on LinkedIn or something like that. I think that's also a pretty cool topic for you to discuss there. And I know you're super active. So whoever doesn't follow Casey yet and doesn't follow Jacob, please do, because they're really great. They're always learn so much from them. Anyway, so thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all
Thank you.
so much knowledge. It was so great talking to you, and I hope to see you all soon.
Likewise. Nice meeting you, Casey.
Thanks for having me. Bye. Nice to meet you as well.
Bye. And we're jumping into our last bit of this event and bringing on to stage Jake Carls right now. So hey, Jake, how are you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Sorry about that. I was just I was writing an email, but
Good.
I'm doing good.
Oh,
How
we're
you
just
doing
talking
there?
about email. Your excuse, that's okay.
How you
Yeah,
doing
so
there?
oh, good. Oh, good. My cat's been going on and off around here. So, but yeah, I've been okay and learning so much this morning. So, super fun. So, we're actually going to talk about building a $100 million D2C chocolate empire. So, it just gets better, this title, like as you go on, move from word to word. So let me introduce you to Jake Carls, everyone. So Jake is the co-founder and rainmaker and Midday Squares and resident social personality. In other words, he builds relationships and makes noise. At Midday Squares, they manufacture functional chocolate bars. So everything a chocolate bar isn't, and everything a protein bar wishes it was. I love that line, by the way. So Jake, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Email Edge. Let's jump right into it. I have a bunch of questions for you. Let's see how that goes. So first question is, and we're going to talk about challenges a little bit in the beginning. So I'm hoping you could share with us the two initial challenges when establishing Midday Squares as an online D2C brand, and how did you navigate them?
So yeah, thank you for having me, first of all. And yeah, Midday Squares is a refrigerated chocolate bar. So we don't live in the typical, area of where shelf-stable products are. So our biggest challenge since, at the beginning, and currently still is somewhat of a challenge, is that we have to ship refrigerated, meaning that chocolate refrigeration is very difficult. It melts, it goes bad if it's too long, because you don't use preservatives or additives. So that was a very hard thing at the beginning to decide how we were going to build a business based on, very intense ways of logistics and a very expensive way of logistics, right? So when we started the business, the second big challenge we had was we didn't have a following. No one knew who I was, who my sister, who my brother-in-law was, who were my partners. So what we did was a very unique strategy to get people to try the Midday Square. Right now the Midday Squares, are $2.49 per bar. And if you want to buy on our website, you have to buy 2 boxes just to make sense of the logistics. So it ends up being a $50 purchase. But at the time, when people don't know who you are or what your product is, to get them to spend $50 is probably outrageous. It's something that's very difficult. So we did something very unique. We actually created an online sample program to avoid this challenge. And what it was we charged 25 cents per bar. And what that meant was you got a chocolate bar, but you also got us to hand deliver it because we couldn't afford shipping. So in the region where we started was Montreal, Canada, we would actually hand deliver every single night to meet the consumer and ask them why they bought it. And the idea was we wanted to have so much personalization. And we put that 25 cents at the price point, not because it was a way to make money or to get back our costs. It was a way to ensure that we weren't getting freeloaders trying the product. They had to put their credit card down. So we actually knew that there was an opt-in. And that was a huge thing. So we did that for about 3 months, and that built a lot of traction for the brand. And at the same time, we were telling our story on social media, which was going viral, meaning that we were just sharing how we build this business, showing the behind the scenes of the company. And people felt this immense amount of humanization and personalization. And then suddenly over time, that led us to becoming a D2C brand and a retail brand at the same time.
I love how, like, at the beginning of things, before you actually do things that scale, you have to do things that are not scalable. And yeah, I love that example. Thank you so
Well,
much for sharing.
Mariana,
Yeah.
one thing that we did that was unscalable that we tried to still, as we built 100 million, as we still try to scale it, is every first time customer actually receives a Polaroid picture from the three, my partners and I doing a funky pose, and we actually handwrite a note to the customer saying thank you. At the beginning, we used to actually look the person up on social media, get to know them a little personally, and write something really, really personal. We can't do that today because obviously there's a lot more customers than we had at the beginning. But what we do today is we still do a funky picture. We figure out how to automate these pictures, but also get my mother and her team that she's created to write personalized messages. They aren't looking at you on social media, but they are personalizing a custom message, which still gives that sense of this brand cares about the consumer. And when you humanize and personalize as much as you can, people feel like they're buying from a friend rather than just a transaction. And that's a powerful thing that I think more brands need to figure out is how can we continue to humanize, whether that's, send a video to the customer on social media, person mentioning their name, or do you get handwritten notes? But mentioning their name is a super important thing because that means that they are heard, they're acknowledged, and they're appreciated.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. I love that. I didn't know about the pictures. That's so cool. Yeah, I want to hear about more brands trying that out. Well, the probably growing brands too. So I actually have a long question now. You're known for boldly building midday squares out loud, and in one of your interviews, I watched a few of them. You mentioned that your first hire was a videographer, and to make sure every bit of your story was captured as it unrolled. So were there any challenges in balancing authenticity with maintaining a positive brand image, especially in the context of all the uncertainty of building a business? How did that go?
So yes, this is an amazing question. I think it's important. Authenticity is the only way to break through in the world full of inauthenticity. So when you are yourself and you are unapologetically yourself, people feel that energy. They either love it or they hate it. And if they love it, they're diehard fans. If they hate it, they'll never engage with you or they'll engage in a negative way. But for us, we knew if we wanted to win this chocolate game, we weren't going to win by being the number one best tasting product, because that's great and all. And we are a great product and we have product market fit and all that stuff, but you needed more than that. We needed a little bit more. And what we did was I told my partners, if we share and document the entire journey, meaning that we share the good, the bad, the ugly of how we build this business, showing you therapy sessions, breakdowns, milestone, burnouts, how we fire, how we hire, how we raise money, things you never get to see in a corporation, then that will strike through this world of attention and actually grab attention at a way faster and more efficient rate than it would be to sell the product to the consumer on advertisements and D2C stuff. So what we did was we started sharing our whole journey, our private lives, our personal lives, the business life, and it was working. And we started getting a lot of traction, a lot of organic views, a lot of virality, and people were starting to opt into our journey, feeling like they were part of this journey, meaning that they felt the good and the bad of emotions that we had to go through. And the good side of that is that you build real fans that will be die hard for your business and do whatever they can to help sell your product more and more and more. But then the second side of it and the challenge is that you have trolls. You have a lot of trolls out there. You have a lot of negativity that will come in because people don't like when people are actually being themselves, because it makes those individuals feel a little bit insecure about themselves because they're not being themselves. So at the beginning of this journey, it was very hard to deal with all the trolling that we were getting. And it's not crazy amount, but it was still like, mean comments, hateful comments. And it hurts because you take it personally because it's your business and it's who you are. And especially it's about your personal life. You definitely think it's personal, and it is. But I start to realize over time that this isn't a me problem. It's a them problem. It's the person that's actually doing it. They're suffering. So the way we look at it now is with all the challenging, rude comments and mean stuff is I try to go out and help them. I actually ask them, hey, is everything okay? And 6 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, these individuals are just having a bad day and take it out on the brand or the individual that's being transparent and vulnerable. And it makes them feel uncomfortable. 3 out of 10 times is just mean people, so you just block them. But most of the time, it's just an empathetic thing that you need to do, and it's not a problem that is personally on you. So I think that that's the disadvantage of building out loud is you're going to have a lot of that emotionality hit you, but you're also going to have the greatness of seeing what real fandom looks like. Because when you build trust and you're relatable, you're really building friendships with your customers, which don't just buy your products, they shout about it every day.
I love that. And I think that's so, it requires a lot of therapy. You're right. And especially because that also means if the mean comments are not like are not personally attacking you is actually something that's about the person. That means the good comments are also about the people that are commenting on it, right? So it's not about you again. So whatever is about you, it's only what's within you. So that's
Exactly.
so cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So I was wondering about yeah your whole storytelling strategy and how much it's actually focused on building consumer trust. Do you also rely on it to increase conversions, and what other strategies and channels do you use for that?
So first of all, storytelling is the forefront of our business. So documenting and sharing the good, the bad, the ugly. We have videographers, we have editors. It's like a media team within a chocolate factory. So it's kind of very unique. And that what that does is increases the conversions over time. And what I mean by that is when you watch our story, first you're very curious and you're like, what is this? You're like, this, what are they selling? There's like you don't even know. It's drama, it's chaos, it's family drama, it's literally good, bad, ugly. So you're confused, but you're curious. It piques curiosity in the human nature component. Then you watch another video and you're like, wow, this company's really interesting. Who are these people? So you continue to watch, you go down our path, our like we'll call it our journey of content, and you start to slowly become a fan of the brand before even trying the product. So then when we finally hit you with more of a here's the function of our product, here's what we sell, you're then already opting in as a fan of what we're doing, or not a fan, and you don't even want to see our stuff. So what that does is it creates the fan before they buy the product. So the conversion in the end is actually higher because over time they're going to buy, and they're buying into something that they already have an emotional bias before they eat the product. So it's a win-win. But the idea is if the product didn't taste good, they'll probably move on from it after. But again, product market fit kicks in after that, and that's why it's important to have product market fit. So I think that other strategies that we use is email. We use influencers on social media. I think that that's a very big thing for us because we're not just a D2C business, we're also a retail business. So we actually have influencers talk about both, hey, buy on our website, buy online, here's a discount code, and they talk about the review of the product, and they show it in their lifestyles. And the second thing we do with them is we actually have them go to stores and show where the product is because we're refrigerated, so it's complex to find it. So we have them show that to their audiences. And when you do that consistently, not just once, but you invest in, over months of time of that person's content, it becomes familiar in their fan bases. And then their fan bases then comes to your community. So then we put them down our conversion system, which is basically organic content, curiosity, then strike them with a sales method. And then they go on our email list where they're already a fan. They already want to know our stuff. They want to know what kind of content's going on the email. The email is more just like updates on interesting thing that's going on in the business, whether it's a new promo, whether it's a new flavor, whether it's a new piece of event that we're doing. So that's where the emails come into components, keeping them up to date. But everything else is the storytelling component that's staying them in the curiosity, keeping their curiosity peaked.
Awesome. And I kind of feel like when we're talking about content, remember that like 10 years back, we would talk about like how content is king and all of that, and write a lot of technical content until the internet was just like overflowing of technical content. And I feel like we're kind of just like going into like this other stage of more like story type of content. And I almost feel like what you're doing with Mayday Squares is almost like having two types of products. So you have the chocolate bars, and then you have content as a product too, and that's free for everyone. So people are already getting a value from whatever it is that you're providing them.
Yeah, Mariana, storytelling is nothing new. Storytelling's been here as long as we've been human. It's how we've interacted forever. It's how we've connected as communities. It's how we've made our next decisions. It's just the vehicles of where the storytelling is outputted has changed. At the 1,000 years ago, we would hunt and gather as society, and we would share our stories around a fire about hunting, and that helped us get better at working together to continue our society. But today, storytelling's purpose is the same. It's just it's on social media, it's on through email, it's through different outlets, but the purpose is the same thing. So for us as a business, we couldn't understand why a lot of brands aren't doing storytelling. Sharing content is not storytelling. Sharing a story is hitting on emotional connection. It's hitting on relatability. It's hitting on components of trust, vulnerability, transparency, things that humans care about deeply. So in a world where attention is probably the most scarce thing right now, because it's so much information being bombarded 24/7 to the consumer, the only way to break through that attention barrier is simply to create a story that relates to that consumer or that individual. Make them a fan before making them a customer. Make them a friend before making them a customer. And how do you do that? You got to go down to human connection and emotional connection.
I love it. Cool. Thank you so much. And okay, so I was wondering, we have talked about hacks like throughout the whole event today, and I was wondering if you had any more hacks that are not necessarily storytelling or they're connected to storytelling that people could go and use it right now.
I think the key is it is just storytelling, but it's something other than storytelling. When you are creating your story for your campaigns or your emails or your social media, I think what will work best is not looking necessarily at the KPI of the views, the engagement, or the return on dollar. I think the best way to do it is to go back to human nature. And what I mean by that is, does this piece of content or advertisement or mail content evoke an emotional response in you? Does it make you feel sad, happy, angry? Does it make you feel anything? If it doesn't, then don't put it out there. Because for us, what we've seen the most successful in terms of conversion is, instead of looking at its views, engagement, stuff like that, it's how does it make someone feel? What's the emotion we're trying to evoke? And when we have a clear path of the emotion, we see a huge success in that campaign. Huge. Because again, humans need emotional connection. So if you're not evoking emotion, it doesn't have to be a good emotion, be a bad one, then you're not getting their attention, because they'll scroll right by, they'll change the email, they'll swipe to the next story on social media, because it doesn't make a difference to them, right? Unless they're already a fan of your product, but that's a different story. But before getting them to acquire them, you need to evoke an emotional connection before getting them to even opt into what you want to do.
That makes a lot of sense. And I was wondering if you actually are able to create those stories organically as they kind of come up, or if you actually have a sort of methodology or a framework that you use to create them.
So two things. So we do both. So one is that whatever naturally happens in a business will happen. For example, we own our manufacturing. If a machine breaks down, we have the advantage of having the videographers in the office is they can go grab all the emotionality that will happen during that time, and they can pull people aside to interview them in the emotional state that they're in. So you're getting the most authenticity as possible. The second thing is we have campaigns planned. So like that's staged, not staged, but it's pre-planned content. So if it's like a campaign for launching a new product, here's the scripts, here's what we need, here's who we need, blah, blah, blah. So I think you as a business need both. That being said, I don't think that every business should take the strategy that Midday Squares took, in the sense of we show everything. We show, like I said, therapy, private life. That's our authenticity. I think what you should look at in your advertising or the way you're going to create content as a business is, what's authentic to you? What's your core values? What's your mission? What's your why? Then create content along that, because our why is to show the world that we can disrupt the chocolate industry that's 100 years old, dominated by 5 brands, by being unapologetically ourselves and being bold. Every piece of content relates to that. And it's a big umbrella, but it relates to that. And I think that brands have lost track of who they are and what they do. And they're so focused on chasing the KPI of revenue or growth of following that they actually start to lose the identity, which ends up eroding your community over time and your fan base. So again, authenticity of your brand is going to drive all the content campaign that you're going to create, because that's what's going to break through in this world, again, full of inauthenticity of content.
I totally agree. And I feel like if you're not actually focusing on your innermost like pillars and stuff like that, it's not even sustainable for you to kind of like keep an appearance, because you don't really understand what's going on, because maybe it's just words for you. They don't really mean anything. So how do you actually do things that are meaningful or express that?
Yeah.
Right?
Find your meaning and live it every day. Like, I know it sounds cheesy, and it's like you hear these things from like those gurus on like social media, but it's true. If you actually are in your flow state, then you are being yourself. And I always tell people this one thing that I learned from college. I studied to be an actuary and I failed miserably, but the one thing I learned was basically what makes you different isn't the product or the campaign you're going to create. What makes you different is you being you, because no one has the same DNA as you. They could copy your product, they can copy your campaign, they can copy your service. They can't copy how you make people feel. So that is what you need to embrace. The second thing is if you input average decisions every single day, hence following the herd and doing what everyone else is doing, into a graph, your output will be average. It'll be a straight line. But if you take that same graph and you input unaverage decisions every single day to it, meaning you just being you is on average, then your graph will be outliers, up, down, up, down, up, down. But the idea of that, that's a huge win, because if you just look at it as, hey, what I learned on the bottom outlier is that I learned something that I don't want to do again, then it's always a W. And that's what allows you to win really, really big. So I think that that's the key component to building a successful community business today.
That's awesome. And are there any hacks that you actually tried and did not work for you?
Yeah, I think, at first we tried to build on YouTube, and it was tough. We tried our content that was working on other platforms, and it just didn't work. So I think you have to understand each platform, that whether it's email, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, these are different platforms for different reasons. The same content might not work, and understanding that is super key. For example, people on LinkedIn might not be looking for how you eat food every day and how you cook your meals that people on Instagram might be looking for. It could be the same person, but their mindset is not looking for the same thing. That being said, it's the same thing as email. When someone gets an email listing, as an email campaign, they might not be looking for the same thing that you're putting on TikTok, which is, let's say, pure entertainment. So I think understanding your platforms is super important. And we at the first we tried to do that, where we aligned all the stuff, and it didn't work. So that's a hack to stay away from.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I was wondering about, so since we're talking about email edge here, right? So we're talking about email marketing. I was wondering how do you use email marketing today as a channel, and do you think there's more to be leveraged there at all?
Yeah, so email is, I think, responsible for 25-30% of our D2C revenue, and the list just keeps building. But I think that with email, I think it's, when someone opts into an email, they are looking for information, or they're looking for some sort of reason from the company. So it kind of gives you a permission, in my opinion, that is not the same as necessarily someone just seeing your content on social media. So for me, give them value, give real value through your emails. Use that as a source where somebody's giving you the privilege of their attention to earn something. So what I mean by that, as a business, what can you add value to their life? Not just discount codes, but what else can you add? What is it? Is it that you're doing an exclusive launch and you're in their area and it's that specific to them where they are invited to come? Or is it that, you have a new flavor and you want to give them as a taste tester, and because they're on the email, they're the ones that are getting that? Because this is a privilege. Email is a very serious thing for people. Where they have their emails is not where they play all the time on their phones. And it's a place where they're focused. It's typically where they're working. Sometimes a lot of their working emails, or it's their place where it's more serious. So I would say that that's a place where give them value, the most value you can offer them. And if it's an entertainment source, fine, but make it really entertaining so that you can, keep them as a privilege to earn their attention from them, or earn their email, because that's a platform where I think people are more serious and ready to make action.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also, to me, as a consumer, I also feel like it's the platform that I use for when I'm not ready to purchase yet, but I don't want to lose contact with that brand.
Yes.
I want something in the future with them to happen. So I want to hear more about them. So that's what email means to me.
I 100% agree with you. It's a place where you don't need to sell 24/7. Relax with the selling. Keep people informed. Give them value so that you're on top of the mind. But when they're ready, they'll come to you. Don't force sell, because eventually that turns people off. And I get sometimes companies have to hit their revenue markers and all that stuff, but it will just hurt you in the long run, because in the short run, they'll get turned off and move on. And you might get their one sale and they're never going to buy again because they're turned off. But if you build that trust, you build that sense of added value, over time, they will not just buy products, they will again sell for you. So it just keeps going. It's a flywheel that can keep going. So it's a privilege. And as companies need to remember, it's a privilege to have their attention.
Yeah, you're so right. And I actually have a question about that. So how in radio, like the more frequent your ads are, the more important it is. So it's more about like frequency than it is about like the length of the ad or whatever. So what about email? How do you see that as well, about frequency? How important is it?
I think weekly is important, to be honest with you. As long, again, with the context of as long as you're adding value. If you're not, more time. And I think less frequently. I think the idea is if you're adding value frequently, then, unless you're catching someone on a bad day, then it's totally fine. Right. And I think at the end of the day, like the more value you give someone, the more usually they feel appreciated. They feel, they feel like they got something out of it. Right. So I wouldn't do it every day. I think once a week is fine. Maybe once every half is good. I don't think you need to be on their mind 24/7. I think social media is a way that people can have you, if they choose to follow you, to see you 24/7 or see you daily. Email, I don't think, is a daily thing, in my opinion.
Awesome. Okay, and I was wondering about like your entrepreneurial route, and if there is an entrepreneur that you actually admire a lot, and why is that?
So I admire a lot of entrepreneurs. I think two of them specifically are, Richard Branson being one. And the reason being is he's authentically himself. He built a brand on his quirkiness and his authenticity. And I don't even know what his brand does, to be honest with you, but it's huge, the Virgin brands. And he's just a personality. People want to be around that type of energy. So his energy is an inspiration for me. And then the second one is a little bit more controversial for some reason, but I respect Elon Musk as an entrepreneur. And the reason why I respect Elon Musk is, he's doing a lot of creativity and innovation with the products he's creating, whether it's the electric cars or the SpaceX or Starlink or Twitter. But I think more than that, it's what I get from him is that you could win by being yourself. And you have to understand that in life, if you are unapologetically yourself, people are not going to like you. So he is liked by 50%, loved by 50%, and hated by 50%. And he's still able to build these massive companies, right? So what I learned from that is that you being you has its advantages building the fandom, but you being you also has the downturn of people just not liking you or want to be associated with you. And that is okay. You're not going to be liked by 100% of people. As long as you're a kind person and you're a good soul, then keep doing you. If you're a bad person, stop being you.
Okay, I think this last question might connect with that a little bit. So, okay, this is a important one. So, if you were to caption the best marketing advice you've ever received as a 5 to 7 word presentation slide title, so imagine that slide title, what would that be?
Transparency, vulnerability, and authenticity is the future of marketing.
Ooh, I love that. Awesome. Cool. Okay, and let's finish up strong with this last question. So, what is the one tactic that everyone should go and try right now?
Share your story daily. Stop being scared. There's no reason. You have nothing to lose. You live your story 24/7. No one else lives it 24/7. So you might find it boring, but other people don't. You only have to gain, as long as you're a good person, you only have to gain if you share your story. The internet is free. Stop consuming it. Start adding value to it.
I love it. And did you like see yourselves like kind of learning as you go, like learning how to share a better story, learning how to be more sharp with those stories?
Life is about learning daily if you can. And I think that we're no expert in storytelling. We're no expert in marketing. But what I can tell you is we keep getting a little better every day. And that little step forward gives us more momentum to go the next step forward. And then that just compounds, right? So again, use momentum in a positive direction, but you only gain momentum if you try and execute. So take the step.
Okay, cool. Okay, I actually have, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, if anyone else has like further questions, Marianne, like for me, add me on LinkedIn, Jake Carls. I'm happy, DM me. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So, or follow Midday Squares' journey on social. You'll see the storytelling and campaigning that we're talking about today.
Nice. Thank you so much, Jake, for today. It was so great. And I actually have one question out of curiosity because you mentioned the guy from Virgin, I forgot his name. But well, he's known for like creating all different kinds of products from the same brand. So is that something that you visualize for Midday Squares in the future?
One day, we like chocolate. We're a better for you chocolate bar. We want to eventually go into more chocolate snacks at scale globally. So yeah, like I want people to think of us as a modern day Hershey's. If Hershey's were to start today, what would they look like? But we're not in the unhealthy foods. We're in the better for you set. So we're creating functional chocolate bars. And that's what we want to do. But I think Richard Branson, from Virgin Brands, what his inspiration is to me is your authenticity can attract energy. So you just need to attract that energy by bringing yourself out there. And by the way, if people don't like you, then it is what it is.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for being here today with us. And yeah, so there you have it. Tactics, advice, and just great vibes from 6 fellow marketers who are here today, and especially J. Carl's. Just closing this up, everyone balancing creativity, boldness, and technique as well to boost growth. So thank you so much for being here with us today, and happily emailing everyone.
You rock, Mariana. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye. Thanks.